I find it very interesting. In the book of Revelations, there are many interpretations of what that prophecy, like what's going to happen. Like, for example, just one thing is that many say that there's going to be a rapture. There's those that don't believe in a rapture. There's those that, believe that the 1,000 years of peace is after Jesus, his return. And then there's, like just so many different interpretations of the book of Revelation. And in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11, you can actually go back a few verses and read, and then read 11. But in 11, it says that God has, given them over to their own delusion because they don't want to believe in the truth. Well, it's kind of unique how when it comes to Revelation, there's so many interpretations. And when you're in a small group or you're talking about Revelation to anybody that is a Christian, it's kind of unique how what I run into a lot is, people not wanting to hear what you are talking about. Like, you could be somebody that has studied Revelation for many years off and on. You can have the Holy Spirit give you revelations of, that prophecy, and still have people saying, well, what is the main focus of Revelation? Almost like to say, well, there's the Antichrist, right? And see, the prophecy is for us to figure out who the Antichrist is. Just like the Jews, they had a prophecy of Jesus, of the Messiah. And there were many prophecies about the Messiah, but their job was to figure out who the Messiah was going to be. And so you see how many Jews, had a different interpretation on who the Messiah was going to be, right? Because they misread the prophecies. And it's almost like as if God handed them over to their own interpretations, because every time that there was a prophecy or like a clear picture of who this Messiah was going to be, is almost like, well, what's the main focus? The main focus is that there's going to be somebody born in Bethlehem, and they're going to be the Messiah. But it was like nobody really wanted to figure out who that Messiah was going to be, because they all wanted to believe in their own interpretation of who the Messiah was supposed to be. Therefore, when the Messiah came, they could not see that it was Jesus, and they could not see that the prophecy wasn't not to save them, but it was to save the world. Because they were so stuck and focused on believing, well, what's the main purpose? Let's not worry about figuring out who it's supposed to be and who the prophecy is supposed to be for. What's the main focus? And see, nobody wanted to figure it out. They just wanted to believe their own interpretation. And so likewise, that's what I find with the prophecy of Revelation. That's what I'm saying, is I see a whole lot of Christians that just want to believe in their own interpretation, and they can care less about figuring out the real, the true, the real thing, the real interpretation. They can care less because, let's just focus on the main thing. What's the main thing here? We don't care about the main interpretation. We just want our own interpretation, because the main thing is Jesus is going to return. The main thing is that there's going to be an Antichrist. But who is that Antichrist? And if we're all stuck in our own interpretation, how are we going to know the Antichrist when the Antichrist arrives? When we have all our own interpretation. We have all our own interpretation. And when somebody gives truth to who the Antichrist is, to help the church figure out who the Antichrist is, all I see is they want to turn a blind eye, because they just want to focus on their own interpretation. Well, how can you figure out who the Antichrist is supposed to be? How can we be ready for the Antichrist when the Antichrist comes, if we're so focused on, we know that there's an Antichrist, and so I don't care what you tell me. I'm so focused on my own interpretation. Well, it does not sound like the church is going to find out who the Antichrist is. So therefore, it's almost like Jesus is saying, well, I guess the church just does not want to believe in the full truth. So Jesus is handing the church over to a whole bunch of lies on who the Antichrist is, because we don't want to figure out who is the Antichrist. Church, wake up. Wake up. We cannot be stuck in our own little interpretation of Revelation. We got to figure it out. We got to figure it out. And this message is not to tell you who it is, although I could if I wanted to. Because, believe me, Revelation chapter 17 gives you a clear picture of who it is. but I'm not telling. Figure it out.